BBC Sounds.
Let's get ready to rumble!
5 Live Boxing.
As you know, on this pod, we go all over. We'll go anywhere. Anywhere there's a fighter, anywhere there's a story. We'll even go into the middle of nowhere, the deepest, most remote regions of Essex. I'm in Harlow today. I'm in Ben Davison's gym to speak to Leigh Wood. But before I speak to Leigh Wood, let me just tell you something. I've been in a lot of gyms over the years. I'm getting on. I walked into a gym when I was 9 years of age. And I know what's in gyms. Old skipping ropes, old shoes, a jock strap left behind by someone, a gum shield. There's bits of clothing, there's old chairs, there's dirty rugs, there's dirty ropes, there's dirty cups, there's kettles, there's all sorts of things in gyms. But in this gym, Leigh Wood, there's the most delicate, most gorgeous China tea set. Leigh, before we talk about the boxing, what's the story with the delicate China tea set?
Who don't love a cup of tea? And I've heard that the British Empire was built on tea. So
it might have been built on tea, but that's the most. It just looks so out of place. I love it.
Yeah, I can't really explain that, to be honest. But what I can say is, this gym, unlike other gyms, it's got a lot of equipment. There's a sauna out there.
It's an infrared sauna, special sauna for recovery.
There's also the weights room through the next shutter.
I've seen it. It's enormous.
And it's state-of-the-art stuff, and Ben will keep investing in this gym. It's not just one of them gyms where it's just turn out money, make money. Keep investing back in the gym, whatever's best for the fighters.
Yeah, and that has to be the way. You didn't grow up in gyms that were this stock, did you? Your history in Nottingham, a city with bizarre gyms. What's the gym that's got the staircase that goes upstairs? What the ladders?
There used to be one in Nottingham, in Snantondale, rough and ready gym. There's been loads over the years. I used to train in one in Lincoln as well with Carl Fox, which you're skipping upstairs, and if you're downstairs, you're going to get your head full of dust because it's creaking through. But I do love them gyms as well. Blood, sweat, dust.
Part of your history.
Absolutely, yeah.
You are in many ways, Leigh. You are a guy from the other side of the tracks. You've had it hard, you've had it rough. You look like maybe you wouldn't quite get there. Then you went on that incredible run, and you've been involved in great fight after great fight. About five. I think it's 5 or 6, whatever you want to call it, on the spin. Do you find yourself in that way, sort of looking in at a boxing business that now you're part of? Because you were looking at it for so long, but now you're in the middle of it, but you're still kind of looking in a kind of way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, a little bit. When I look back, a little bit emotional, but I look back and I remember being at the Inglewood gym, and I was so determined, so hungry, and all I wanted was a chance. I remember I'd have jumped in for a world title fight, I'd have jumped in for a British title fight, late notices in the gym every week, just praying, sometimes crying, just for a chance.
Give me a break.
Just give me an opportunity. That's all I wanted, just a chance. I didn't even want a pick me fight, just anyone, just to show people what I've got. And finally, I got the break, and here I am.
Made the most of it, and you grabbed it.
That's it.
Found yourself comfortable at a weight as well, and then grabbed it and run with it. I've got to take you back to that 12th round against Conlon, because I've seen you since then. You've done work with us on 5 Live, but I haven't actually talked to you about that round. Going into that 12th round, I think 2 of the 3 judges had you down, or 3 of the 3 judges had you down going into that 12th round. But you believed, didn't you? I know from what you said to me, you believed you could turn it around in that round.
Like I said in the press conference, he was saying a few things that got under my skin a little bit. It really aggravated me a little bit,
He dismissed you.
It did dismiss me. Yeah.
He did. I like Michael. I've known him a long while, but he dismissed you.
He did, and I said, I carry a lot of power, and I said to him, if you get to that 12th round and I haven't knocked you out, I'm going to knock you out, because I knew them championship rounds 10, 11, 12. I would have pressed him that hard. And he did. He was tired by round 10. He did extremely well to get to round 12.
Did you sense that when you were with him?
Yeah. His output, his power on his shots, me pushing him around. I thought round 10 that would have been it. Round 11, I caught him with that shot. Everyone said he slipped, but he wouldn't have slipped if I didn't catch him.
Absolutely.
And it was just a matter of time. Then he was holding on, locking on, and I did what I said. I got him out of there in the 12th. And there wasn't a second in that fight, even when I was picking myself off the canvas in round 1, when I thought I was going to lose. Not 1 second.
Because that was a heavy knock. You might disagree, but it looked to me from my ringside position a heavy knockdown in the first round.
Well, it's funny because
a good knockdown as well.
It was funny because I picked myself up. I thought I just touched one knee, so I picked myself up, back, stood up, and finished the fight. Walked back to the changing room. Barry Smith, whoa, that was a heavy knockdown, wasn't it? And I looked at him and I went, what do you mean? He went, you got knocked down round one. I was like, I thought I just touched your knee, didn't I? He's like, no, that was heavy.
And you've watched it since?
And I watched it back and I was like, whoa, I didn't even know that happened. I thought it was just a quick get up, but fair play to him. But like I said, the one a second, I didn't believe I was going to win that fight.
And then we had a year where injuries hit and fights didn't happen. And you're back in Nottingham, which was amazing that night. I mean, Leo, I see the smile on your face, smile on my face. It was a privilege to be there that night against Mauricio Lara, a man that we know here because there's a couple of fights with, obviously, with Josh Warrington. Stopped him once, then the other one finished before it really got started. Why are you fighting Lara? And I'm asking you that question because I need to know. I need to know why. Because it's you're a champion and you want to fight the best, but it's such a hard, dangerous fight.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I believe it's a fight I'm going to win. So that's the first.
That's the right answer.
That's the first thing. And second of all, at the time, the WBA was messing around with me a little bit. You're going to fight Santa Cruz, you're not. Then you are, then you're not. Then you can fight someone else, and you can't. Then you can. So
it was a bad year last year.
It was.
After
it was
the Conlon win.
Yeah, from one extreme to the other. I wanted to keep momentum, but at the time, Warrington had his mandatory against Lopez, so I wanted Warrington. That couldn't happen. If the WBA would have sorted that situation earlier, it could have happened for unification fight. Would have been massive.
Would have been ideal,
but it didn't. So I thought in my head, can't get Warrington. The next best thing is the man that beat him. That was literally the thought process. The team looked at the opponent, looked at the styles, and said, you know what, Lara's a fight that suits you more so. Better than my last few fights stylistically, and I'm going to show everyone on February 18th.
And it is a fight that you won't have to go looking for Lara, and we know what Lara's strengths are, and in some ways there's many of your strengths, so that makes it a particularly good fight. But it can't but be a good fight, can it? Because you and Conlon could have been a stinker. If you hadn't, if you'd have been pushing him all the time and you hadn't really got to him and he hadn't dropped you in the first round, you hadn't stopped him in the last seconds of the 12th. It could have been a stinker because he could have made it a stinker. He's good at doing that. But that's not the case with Lara. I'm not trying to hype it. I'm just telling you the truth. It can't be a bad fight.
Yeah, the person that put in, the name Dance for the Devil. But I think a lot of people have misunderstood and not really looked at it and stepped back and think who the devil is. He's a reckless fighter. He comes in, he jumps in, he transitions terribly. I carry power in both hands, and I've got them knockouts at that level consistently. He's had one good win. And more to the point, I don't want to tarnish him because I want to know everyone how good he is for when I beat him.
Sure.
But if I'd hit Warrington in the early rounds, it wouldn't have gone 9.
Yeah. That's a good point because Josh was hurt early, stunned early, allowed to come back into the fight, and then it finally ends. But you've also got you also have got that pedigree perfected through the amateur years, through those long, hard, slogging years as a pro, and those fights in a British title fight first time, about 8 years or 9 years ago or something ridiculous. You do have a boxing brain. You're not just a guy that absorbs punishment and stops a guy in the 9th round or the 12th round. Well, you're good at doing that, by the way. But there is more to you than a guy that can salvage a lost cause.
For sure, and if you step back and look at the two styles, it's a slugging, counter-punching puncher who has to put a lot into develop that power against a small boxer who can adapt to win. And, if you look at things in hindsight, you'd favour the person or the animal if you look at it from another point of view who can adapt to win. And that's what I've done in my last 3 fights. Nothing was the same. If you're looking at me for tendencies, you think, well, he boxed different there, he boxed different there, and he boxed different there. Marissa, Lara, you get the same thing every time.
Yeah.
So I'm at an advantage.
You know where you stand.
Exactly.
It's a dangerous place, but you know exactly where you stand. Yeah. And that's a really valid point you make. I don't like to look past opponents, any opponent, whether they're bangers or whether they're boxers. But it would be good if Warrington can get the title back and if you and Warrington down the line can still fight. It's a natural fight. I mean, you're separated by about 8 miles or something ridiculous. I exaggerate. Nottingham and Leeds more than that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Next for me, obviously I'm not taking miles off this fight. I've done everything I need to do to win this fight. And I believe I'm going to win this fight. I'm confident. But the next thing to the box for me to tick, I did say a few years ago, people have thought I was mad before the British title fight because I've not even won that yet. And I said I wanted to win the British title, box for and hopefully win a world title and be the first person to headline at City Ground. I've now done 2 of them things and people are thinking, whoa, he's actually done what he said. But next after this, I want to head to the City Ground. And if that's Warrington, I'll give him a chance to try win a world title back. But I believe that sells out the City Ground. If not, the Conlon rematch, if he gets the world title, or even the Lopez fight, either. I'm not bothered who's in the opposite corner to tick that box and fulfill my dream.
Now, I'm not a betting man, but do you know, were you the underdog against Reece Mould? Were you the underdog against Conlon? Were you the underdog against...
Kanzu.
Kanzu, we know you were. It was massive, like 62 or 42 to 1 to stop him in the 12th. So were you actually... Do you know if you were the betting underdog in some of those last 3 or 4 fights?
Yeah, definitely. My last 2, I was an underdog.
Wow.
Quite a big one for the Kanzu. As Conlon fight got closer, I don't really look at the bookies odds to be.
I don't either, but I just wondered if you did.
I've been told though, and I've been told for this fight I'm a massive underdog. But the Reece Mould fight was probably even, which was quite disrespectful. I thought, based on experience. But the bookies or the public even, because it's not the bookies. I can't blame the bookies. Their odds go based on what the public are betting on, and they're betting on the other person. So. I'm not complaining. My friends get a holiday out of it every time I fight. So
Carl Froch used to say that all the time. Carl Froch said he provided holidays for about 50 of his friends for about 15. You might have been in the gang, 15 or 20 fights, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. The bookies, they swing their odds based on what people are betting on, and they're betting on the person. And eventually, the people might realise. They look at Warrington and they look at Lara and what he did to him, and they look at me and they straight away they think, "Whoa, Conlon put him down. What's Lara going to do to him?" But they don't look at me. They don't look at me and think, "Well, he got up and won." Yeah. And it's a lot harder to nail than Lara. He sets things up a lot better.
Yes.
Stylistically, this is one that suits me. And if you're betting on Lara, then be prepared to lose money.
Listen, Leigh, it's been an absolute pleasure and a delight talking to you here in this gym in Harlow. And I will come back to Harlow and I will use that China tea set. I'm looking forward to Nottingham. Thanks, Leigh.
Thank you, mate. And talk to you soon.
I'm going to leave the kitchen now. I'll leave Leigh in there with that unbelievable tea set. And I'm going to ask the man that A, runs the gym, and B, is in the corner with Leigh. But more than that, he may be in charge of that tea set. Ben Davison, thanks for joining me. Ben, there's a gorgeous tea set in your kitchen that Leigh and I we talked about the fight as well. We were talking about the tea set. Where did it come from? It looks fabulous.
Oh, it's a secret. It's a secret.
Is it a trade secret?
The missus bought me it, to be honest.
So it's a little bit of civility in this gym, a little feminine touch, maybe.
In the kitchen, in the corner, with a little bit of dust on it, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a tea set in there as well. Boom, boom. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Big year last year, and it wasn't all. It was a roller coaster. It's a classic boxing year.
Yeah.
You have winners, then you lose a fighter. You're waiting for this fight to happen and that fight to happen. And it doesn't happen. Bit of a classic boxing year last year. What with Josh Taylor in an incredible fight. Really hard, brutal fight, and then he decides to move on. That's understandable. That's the business. And then Leigh in fight of the year, round of the year, whatever you want to say, against Conlon. What a year, Ben!
Yeah, unbelievable. Just the other day, we took our first loss in 6.5 years when Chris Congo lost for the British Commonwealth titles.
Wasn't a lot in that, was there?
What's that?
Wasn't a lot in that.
It was a very close fight.
Yeah,
exactly. So, but that was our first loss in 6.5 years. So that was a little bit of a kick in the teeth, but. It's been a fantastic journey, and last year was a fantastic year, and especially Leigh Wood himself has been a phenomenal journey, and one that potentially could be up there as my favourite story because of
picking up and working with Leigh and through to the Conlon 12th round drama.
Yeah, and just he wasn't expected to go on and do what he's done, and he's been put in situations as underdogs numerous times.
At least 3 or 4 times, I reckon.
Yeah,
in that last 6 fights, at least 3 or 4.
And he's the talent aside, it's the dedication, the commitment, the 1% that he's always making the right decisions. That's what's seen him through, and that's what's led him to the success that he's having now.
And that's what led him off the canvas in the first round and into that unbelievable 12th round. When you sent him out for the 12th, because he'd hurt Conlon at the end of the 11th, when you sent him out for the 12th, you knew he was trailing. I'm assuming you knew he was trailing on points, or you had a gut feeling it was a tight fight. Were you confident he could pull off what he did in that round? And did you know he needed that, Ben?
Yeah, I thought it was close. I thought if Leigh won that round, I thought he was in for a shout. And I thought that he'd obviously dropped him in the 11th, and I thought that, of course, there was a potential stoppage on the cards there, the fashion in which it happened was you know, that fight was a fight that I think in time people will always look back on and talk about because it was so dramatic, unbelievable.
I mean, landing. I mean, you know, just to refresh people's memory, Michael Conlon dropped Leigh in the first round. Then in the 11th, the Conlon was dropped. He was tiring. Then in the 12th, Leigh pushed him, put him under pressure, then dropped him, sent him through the ropes into the arms of his brother and father. You can't write this stuff. It's pure Hollywood. But there again, we also had that with the 12th round with Tyson Fury, when he went down, was seemingly going to sleep for ages, and there was that massive resurrection in Los Angeles. That's 2 12th rounds, Ben, that might rank as 2 of the most dramatic 12th rounds anyone's ever seen.
Oh, no.
You were there both times.
I was there both times, and Leigh Wood won his world title in the 12th round. Shabazz Massoud won his title the other day in the 12th round, so... Yeah, there's
something in that.
Yeah, there's something in the water here.
Now, Mauricio Lara is well, he is what he is, a very dangerous Mexican fighter, extremely dangerous and aggressive. It poses very different problems than Michael Conlon, slick, clever, smart fighter. Who can bang, but slick, clever, and smart. How has Leigh adapted? And you'll talk about how he come from the other side of the tracks. He got here. No one thought he was ever going to get here. He believed. How has he been when you've been talking to him in the build up to this fight? And because I know you're a good talker. Sorry, you're good at talking to the fighters. It's not just 12 threes on the pads. It's a lot of thought, a lot of sense goes in.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say with Leigh is he's boxed Kanzu, who's this ultimate pressure fighter, volume fighter, and Leigh had to
win the title, the Chinese kid.
And Leigh had to box in a certain manner to contain that. He did that. He then had to do what he done against Mick Conlon, who, as you said there, was a very tricky customer, so versatile, so many layers. Preparation had to be so deep for that fight because of how versatile Mick Conlon is. And then now we've got this Mauricio Lara, who's a very dangerous puncher and almost come out of the abyss with a victory over probably the number 1 featherweight at the time in Josh Warrington.
Absolutely.
Leigh's gone about each fight in a different manner, and I think that says a lot about his professionalism and how coachable he is. And, yes, Mauricio Lara is dangerous, but he's also reckless, and I believe that you can't be as reckless as that against a puncher like him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can see absolutely what that idea is, what the thinking is there. One thing's for sure, it turns out to be, like we've had already this year, we've had 2 unbelievable weekends. One was an amazing event, Liam Smith against Chris Eubank Jr., and then last weekend, I know you were there, Anthony Yard against... I know you were there last week, Anthony Yard against Better Biev, which was an amazing fight and an amazing event. Now we've got this, now we've got this. 3 fights like that to start a year. So by the 19th of February, we would have had 3 nights and fights like that. Look at the smile on your face. As a boxing fan, it's incredible.
It's not too bad, that, is it? Good start to the year. Good start to the year.
Ben, rest of the year, I will ask you the question I ask fighters. Where do you see yourself? 31st of December, 2023. Where do you see yourself? What's happened inside your brilliant facility here in Harlow with your fighters?
I'd like to see the prospects making the improvements in the areas that we're looking to develop. I'd like to see Leigh Wood be victorious for February 18th, but also I would love to see him have his opportunity to do the Nottingham fight at the City Ground.
Josh Warrington.
Yeah, against Josh Warrington. That would be an amazing fight. Just the goal is for me is just helping the fighters achieve their dreams. And if I can do that along the way this year, in whatever fashion that I can do so, that's a successful year for me.
Ben, it's always a pleasure talking to you, no matter where it is. And next time I come, I'm going to bring some special Darjeeling that I was sent once by a Sri Lankan relative. And we'll have a proper cup of tea with that proper tea set you got. Ben Davison, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dave.
Ben Davison there talking teacups, talking the future, and talking what will be an extraordinary night on Saturday in Nottingham. Now, I'll be in a position at ringside, and slightly in front of me there'll be the glorious table full of the glory boys. And there'll be maybe Andy Lee, I don't know. But the main man there, Regal, will be Mike Costello. And I'm joined here now by Costello. First of all, son, great to have you back on 5 Live. You've got 180 minutes. 180 seconds. That's all you've got. Not 180 minutes, you'd be sacked. This fight is... We've had a great year so far. But this is quite ridiculous, isn't it? Lara against Leigh Wood in a telephone box on a Saturday night. It feels like that, doesn't it?
Well, I said to you when I turned up here that this is the kind of fight that turns you back into a kid. You can't imagine this failing on the night. This can't be anything but exciting.
Even if it's a one-round knockout.
Absolutely. Both will land before one of them goes down. Both will have landed, no doubt about that. And I think that's the attitude that they take into the ring, is the attitude that makes us so excited about the sport. Not every boxer takes their attitude into the ring,
and that's attitude,
and they are going to leave it in the ring.
I mean, it's almost irrelevant that it's for the WBA title or the IBF title or the WBO title or the WBC title or final eliminator or the Pan-Continental IBC title. I was once on the IBC judging panel, so I had to slip them in, as you know. But that's irrelevant. We just got, in fact, it's a bit like one round at a time. We've definitely got a round. Okay, then at the end of the first round, we'll see how we go, see if we got a second.
I think that's part of the fascination about the fight as well, is that Lara is known as this big puncher. But if you look at his record, he's been 10 rounds against a journeyman, but he hasn't been 10 hard rounds. He hasn't been the championship distance of 12 rounds. Yeah. And so, as we get closer to the fight
and this kid likes the distance,
do that deeper analysis.
He likes longer fights.
And what did we find out last time he was in the ring? Yeah. That power stays with him until the dying seconds of the 12th and final round. So however much success Lara might have had at any stage in the contest, if it's going to go late, this fella Leigh Wood behind us here is always going to have a chance.
And one thing, he wasn't ramming it down my throat when I was talking to him in the kitchen here, but he was saying, look, I can box as well, and he can box, and he's picked up enough over the years. He can be a lot smarter than maybe people give him credit for.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that might be key on the night, because they both hit so hard, and it might come down to who is cleverest at finding the openings when it really matters. I mean, you can look at some of, even his most recent fights, Lara, and he throws roundhouse punches, and you think in simple terms, if Leigh Wood goes down the middle, then he'll get there first, and he'll sting, and he'll hurt him.
Or blocks it and counters.
But
all easy to say, son.
Absolutely, because that's what Josh Warrington tried to do. Now, okay, it was a Warrington that he admits was undermotivated at that time. It was behind closed doors. None of the Leeds United
faithful. He's given up his world title to fight the guy that he was going to defend his world title against.
And there might be a danger that we continue to overrate what happened on that night. And then in the rematch, I keep being told that Lara was on top and that Warrington got lucky. That's not the way I see it.
But me either. I did it 5 Live on the night next to you. I'm with you. I agree with you completely.
It might well be we haven't seen the best of Mauricio Lara, but it might also be at this level how this man has improved. And by the way, we saw the kind of start of that after he lost to Jazza Dickens on the night. He beat Reece Mould. And I know there was talk about this at your show on BT Sport recently when Carol Italma got beaten on the undercard. What kind of effect would that have on his brother who was making his debut?
That was the exact. It was pointless pointing it out on BT the other week, but that was the exact instance I was thinking about on that night, because Carol Italma would have gone back into the dressing room, cut, bruised, beaten for the first time, and also shockingly beaten. And Reece Mould, confident fighter, would have gone back into the dressing room, cut, bruised, bleeding, and that cannot have a good effect. And he was sitting there with Josh Warrington, was in the same dressing room. I completely agree with you.
And it's what Leigh did to him, Steve. And I'd been talking to Josh's dad and trainer Sean O'Hagan during the week. They were really confident about Reece Mould.
Yeah, they were.
And so that was almost the night that Leigh Wood was reborn. And then he wins the world title next time out, defends it against Michael Conlan, and even Conlan's 2 subsequent results. They make him look really strong, Leigh Wood. So
perhaps there's a little bit of underestimation and overestimation attached. It's good.
Anyway, is that 180 seconds?
No, that's a bit longer. But
nearly the minute.
But we can't do anything together, you and I, without at least mentioning Floyd Mayweather for obvious reasons. No, of course. Listen, you touched on it there. It was a good line. You said we all know how to beat Lara. We can devise tactics to beat Lara. Well, everyone knew how to beat Floyd Mayweather, remember, for 15, 16, 17 years. No one did it. Although if he carries on fighting the YouTube army, my misfit YouTube army, he'll come unstuck against one of my influencers one day, probably when he's about 72. Mick, thanks very much for your time. What an absolute joy.
Let's get ready to rumble!
5 Live Boxing.